Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. The overall meta here in Warzone 2 right now is honestly extremely competitive, all things considered, when you factor in the close range meta, the sort of sniper support and mid-range meta, and the long range meta. Even after the health update, we've got plenty of just super competitive options. And today I'm gonna try and break down the top 10 best of the best when it comes to what you want to be using and rank them in order from 10 to 1, which is probably the most difficult top 10 in terms of placement that we've had yet here in Warzone 2. But that said, I'm starting first here at number 10 with the HCR. This is just a low recoil, consistent, and very aggressive LMG, right? This thing is super easy to use. Borderline one of the easiest weapons to use on this list here today and in the game in general. It also, though, brings the power as well. Its overall TTK and its realistic TTK is phenomenal. It obviously is a little bit slower because it is an LMG, but it's one of the more aggressive ones in that it's a little bit faster than the RAAL or the RAPP or some of these other options. It's just very well rounded, right? As far as the setup goes here, we're just trying to optimize and make the mid to long range as efficient as possible here. So I got the TAQ-V. You're going to see this on the vast majority of weapons here today for the mid to long range. And of course, we're always tuning for the furthest eye position and faster ADS, but whenever it comes to an optic, always use the one you are the most comfortable with. That way you're going to be as accurate as you possibly can be. Rear grip stip 40, another common theme for today. You'll see this one quite a bit. It just focuses straight up on better recoil control, so it attacks vertical and horizontal and just makes weapons easier to use. High velocity, of course, is going to be clutch for mid to long range fights. Going to make it so you don't have to bullet lead as much or adjust for bullet drop, and it's going to make the weapon feel a little bit more consistent as far as like hit reg goes. That's sort of like a hidden effect of that. It's not actually changing the hit reg, but it just makes it feel like the weapon's more consistent. Ripper underbarrel is based around the stabilization, of course, so for mid to long range, this is also huge. Just going to limit that sway and make the weapon a lot more reliable and easy to learn, especially over longer ranges. We're always tuning for better stability and stabilization there. Then the Harbinger suppressor is one of the heavier ones, meaning that this does offer the standard velocity and range that most suppressors do, but it's going to give you a little bit of better control as well. Once more, just making the weapon even easier to use. For the HCR being the 10 spot on the list, I feel like that should sort of explain just how good numbers 9 through 1 are going to be, because this is a phenomenal weapon. And number 9, I've got the Lachmann 7.62. We've talked about this a handful of times so far in Warzone 2, and it's especially lethal right now with the health update just because this thing brings the power. It's one of the more difficult weapons to use, though. We're really focused on using this in fully automatic mode rather than semi-auto because that's where it's going to thrive the most. It does have added control, though, so a lot of this setup is focusing on making the weapon easier to use. But when you land your shots, this thing just erases. Its mid-range TTK is especially impressive. Thing is just an overall demon in the right hands. Yet again, TAQ-V, same deal as always there. The 50-round drum, especially in full auto mode, I feel like is kind of necessary just because you are going to burn through ammo, and your accuracy won't be perfect on this. Even with the best of the best players, they're going to miss shots because there is a significant amount of bounce on this weapon. So 50 is going to be what you want to use in pretty much any single squad size, right? High velocity ammo here is one of the choices. Obviously, getting that better hit reg feel and, reduce bullet lead and whatnot like before is going to be clutch here. That said, going for a rear grip that focuses on control like the TCG-10 would also be an option there, so you might want to experiment around with that. Lock grip precision, on the other hand, is going to focus straight up on recoil control as well, whereas something like Ripper would be for stabilization. If you were using this in semi-auto, you'd want Ripper, but in full auto, you definitely want lock grip precision just for that added control factor. That's going to be huge in a weapon like this. And then Sack and Shred 40, your basic compensator here, focuses mainly on vertical, but also has some horizontal attack there too, just to make the weapon easier to use. Technically, this is one of the lowest recoil builds, especially if you swap out high velocity for the TCG-10. It's still going to take some time to get used to, but if you master this thing, it's going to dominate. Now, at number 8, I've got the Razorback. This thing for the close to mid-range as a rifle is phenomenal. It's probably the best sniper support option right now. It's basically the perfect combination of the Kastov 74U and the Chimera. It's got the velocity of the 74U and the TTK of the Chimera, which just means it's phenomenal there in the mid-range. Also with this build, it's relatively straightforward to use as well. So pairing this with a sniper, or maybe even using this as like a close range secondary with like an LMG or something could be viable as well. Here behind the face cam, I've got the Eclipse Comb. This is going to focus on ADS and sprint to fire, just making the weapon more snappy. We basically want to make the movement here as close to an SMG as possible because it's already got the rifle damage, right? I also go for the TRG X1 rear grip. This does focus on control, but you'll notice I tuned for the inverse of better mobility, so we're kind of getting all of that out of one singular attachment. 60 round mag is kind of a must-have here with this fire rate. You're gonna burn through ammo, so you gotta have that. Olay laser for the snappier ADS and the better sprint to fire, and we also tune for better mobility as well, so just once more helping out with that speed. And then for some handling, I go for the Komodo heavy. The horizontal bounce and shake on this thing is really the main skill gap, I would say. The vertical pattern is very straightforward, so using Komodo here is going to make it a lot more reliable and a lot more consistent and way easier to actually control over the mid-range. So that's a pretty clutch attachment as well, in my opinion. But this thing, probably the most aggressive rifle we have right now, and it fries. Now at number 7, I've got the M13. You guys know I have gassed this weapon up for months. I've been on the M13 train for some time now. This thing's a phenomenal rifle. Over range, it's got the best TTK out of all the rifles. It's relatively straightforward to use. Its recoil is pretty simple here. It's got the velocity. It's got everything going for it right now. Its damage per mag after the health update is a slight concern, which is why I have this at just number 7 instead of maybe a little bit higher, but even then, it's still one of the best mid to long range options in the game right now, and arguably the best rifle in the game as well. Very standard setup that you guys have probably seen a couple of times now. AMOT V4, as always there. 60 round mag, again a necessity here because of the fire rate. 45 is going to run out of ammo way too quick in anything other than solos. Now I do go for high velocity here because I'm pretty comfortable with this weapon, and I like that, you know, added advantage this gives for mid to long range fights. But if you need some extra control, drop out high velocity, throw on, you know, Ripper on here for that better stabilization. That'll make things pretty easy to use as well. I also go for the Harbinger in this case as well. Better velocity, better range, better control on this one too, since it is one of the heavier suppressors. Better velocity and ADS speed on those tunes. Then the Echelon barrel. This is a 3-in-1 combo. We got the better range, better velocity, better control, better pizza. It's just going to optimize the weapon for mid to long range as well, make it even more efficient and lethal there. So obviously this is going to thrive where you build it out to be the best, and you know, in the mid to long range, thing is a great choice. But that said, in my opinion, I'm still taking the Lachmann 5.56 over the M13 at the number 6 spot here. For what it's worth, though, I think you can make an argument for either of these flip-flopping, and you'd, you know, have good evidence there. You'd have good proof because each of these are phenomenal rifles. The reason I go with the Lachmann, though, is I feel like most players are going to find more success with this just because of how easy it is to use. This and the HCR are what I would say are the two easiest guns in the game, and I'd probably give the edge to the Lachmann in this case because this setup is just a laser beam. You point somewhere, that's where it's going to shoot. The recoil is so simple, so easy here. It also has a phenomenal TTK. There's just nothing really wrong with the Lachmann right now. It's all pros in my mind. AMOT V4, yet again, no surprises there. 60 round extended mag, pretty basic as well. And then I go pretty much all out for control. Instead of going for high velocity, I do use Ripper in this case, but in the similar fashion of the M13, if you're super comfortable with this gun, drop the Ripper, throw on a high velocity. It might feel a little bit more consistent for you. Definitely experiment around with that. I also go for the RAPP barrel. This is better velocity, better control, better range as well. That 3-in-1 combo yet again. And then in this case, because the recoil is so easy, I don't feel like you need a heavy suppressor, so I go for Echoless. This won't help out with the control, but it's got a snappier ADS and still gives you better range and better velocity. So that to me really optimizes this setup in particular, because just out of the gate, it is just so easy to use, and I love it for that. Now, as we break into the top 5, quick reminder, if you are new to the channel, every single day, I got you covered with everything you need to know about COD, whether it's loadouts, updates, leaks, you name it. It's all right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. Also, if you enjoy the video, if you find it helpful at all, a like rating would be seriously appreciated. And if you haven't already checked it out, my official Gamer Advantage times WhosImmortal bundle is now live. You can actually get 2 different variants of this. One is the full-on glasses bundle, which comes with custom etched WhosImmortal frames. It's got the tiger claw like scratch actually on the lens, which is super cool. Then it also comes with all the accessory kits, but if you just want to buy the accessory kits as is, maybe you already got yourself a pair of GA frames, you can get this as well. It comes with a custom WhosImmortal Iron Tiger cleaning cloth. You got a sticker in there too. Super cool stuff. If you throw in code Immortal at checkout, you also get a discount on your entire order. The link for that will be down in the description below. But at number 5 here, I've got the TAQ-V. This thing is on the rise for sure. It's got the power, it's got the melt ability, right? Like this thing, when you land your shots, is going to decimate everybody. The key is landing your shots because the recoil here is rough. If this was a little bit easier to use, it might be 3, 2, or 1 on this list, but that recoil is definitely keeping it in check. It's not a weapon that everyone's going to be able to pick up and just fry with right away. But that said, those who can use this effectively are going to win games because of it. yet again. AMOP V4, of course, they'll use whatever optic you're the most comfortable with. I don't know why all the guns are backwards in the gunsmith today, by the way. It's kind of weird. I got the combat rear grip, straight up going for better control here. You need it on a weapon like this. 50 round extended mag's the max here, and that's totally sufficient for what this fire rate is. Unfortunately, no high velocity here because you just have to focus so much on control. Ripper, I feel like, is going to be the best bet here over something like lock grip precision, just because with that added stabilization over the long range, it's going to make it a little bit more consistent, and you won't have to work as much to memorize that pattern, right? It'll sort of eliminate the RNG there. And then the Talon suppressor, this is going to be the equivalent of like the Harbinger. It's a heavier one, so slightly slower ADS at the cost of getting some better control here on top of the added velocity and range. So this is a weapon you might want to spend some time with in the firing range, really learn that pattern, learn how the weapon behaves. But after you master it, boy, are you set. It's going to dominate. Now at number 4, we have what is by far the best SMG, the ISO 45. This is actually the only SMG on the list. I mean, the Razorback is built to be an SMG, but technically, yeah, this is the only sub on the list. That said, for being a top 10, like I said, this was so hard. The Lachmann, the Vaznev, the P90, they're so close to being on this list. There's several other mid to long range weapons as well. It was a tough job to narrow this down to just 10 weapons. But anyways, I digress. ISO 45. We know this thing's absurd up close, right? It's been the go-to sub since it dropped here with season 4. Setup for me is really not changing. I found this one initially and I've stuck with it because, man, does it work. 45 round drum, of course, you're always going to be running that. I like the sheer rear grip for that better ADS and sprint to fire. I tuned for the better sprint to fire, and then with our left slider recoil steadiness and ADS speed, you could go down for ADS speed. I've sort of been experimenting with that. You could also go up for recoil steadiness as well. It just depends on how comfortable you are with the gun, but either or there is going to be a totally acceptable choice. I also go for the Cheetah stock. This will help out that sprint speed, ADS speed, strafe speed. It's just great for mobility in general. 7 milliwatt laser, faster ADS and sprint to fire. Then Lockshot KT85. This is going to be one of your better compensators for just straight up control. Going to make the gun a little bit more consistent if you find yourself in like the mid range, and just adds some consistency to an overall setup that's mainly focused on mobility. This thing flies, this thing fries, and like I said, it's by far the #1 SMG. Now at number 3, I've got the RAPP, and this is where things get very difficult when determining, okay, this is 3, this is 2, this is 1, because quite frankly, the next 3 weapons all have the chance to be a #1 gun in the game. The RAPP is one of those guns. This thing is absurd. Decently low recoil for what this weapon is, and if you land shots, goodbye enemies. See you in the gulag, see you in the pre-game lobby. This thing's going to erase them. The fire rate and the damage combination here is absurd. Now that said, it's slow as can be, it's heavy, it weighs 2 million tons, the reload sucks, and the ADS sucks. Those are what keep this weapon in check, but the pure damage output and power output is almost unmatched. The thing is unreal. Again, we got AMOP V4, and again, the weapon is backwards for some reason. TCG 10 rear grip, focusing on that recoil control just to make the weapon a little bit easier. I go for the 100 round mag. Not everyone is going to need to use this, and if you don't want to use this, drop this, throw on high velocity, I would say would be a good choice there. But to me, with 75 as the basic and default mag here, with this fire rate, you're going to be reloading a little bit more, and the reload is so abysmal, I want to avoid that at all costs. So 100 just keeps that from happening a little bit more. It's not much, but it's something. Ripper underbarrel yet again, and then Talon suppressor on here as well. Same tunes as always on that, and of course I'll have them up on screen. By the way, if you're screenshotting, if that helps you out, be sure to drop a like on the video. But there's not enough good things I can say about the RAPP. This thing has been one of my top choices lately for ranked, for resurgence, for standard battle royale. It's just a beast. Now at number 2, I'm going with the RAAL, but like I said, you can make an argument for the RAPP being #1, the RAAL being #1, actually #1 being #1, but this thing has been the TTK king since launch of Warzone here. Same stands true now. If you landed shots with this thing, it's going to erase enemies as well. The power is just genuinely unmatched here. It does have a decent amount of recoil you have to get used to. This setup largely attacks the recoil though. Then also, again, just like the RAPP, this thing is super slow, man. The reload sucks, the ADS sucks, the movement speed sucks because it is a heavy LMG, but if you can learn to navigate that and use it as a mid to long range weapon, you're gonna be just fine. Surprise, surprise, we got AMOP V4 yet again. I got the Stip 40 rear grip straight up for that better control. I go for the Dune underbarrel. This is going to really attack steadiness here and make the weapon a lot easier to use. This is a pretty clutch attachment. I do go for the Nil Sound 90 suppressor, which is actually a little bit lighter. It's not going to help out with control like Dreadnought and Reaper and Talon would in this case. but I do that because the ADS is already so bad. I don't want to slow it down even more by using a heavier suppressor. This will still help out with that range and velocity. Plus, the Rhino barrel does also attack the control as well, makes it a bit easier to use and gives you a little bit of added velocity, sort of making up for the fact that we don't use high velocity on this particular build. This is the setup that I've been running for a while now. I do really like this. It's probably the most consistent one that I've used to date. Definitely try it out because you're going to notice once you start landing your shots and really mastering this gun, nothing really stands a chance. And then finally at number 1, I've got the SO14. I mean, this thing in semi-auto, if you can spam it, if you can land your shots consistently, truly is going to feel like the most broken gun in the game. I mean, it's just, its overall TTK is absurd and in my opinion probably needs a nerf, but it's also much more difficult to use in some cases than the RAAL, than the RAPP, which is why I say those could make arguments for being the number 1 gun. This is such a competitive high-end meta right now that so many different guns have the chance to shine, which honestly is a really good thing, right? Because semi-auto gun like this, what is going on at the middle of the screen here? I don't know what's broken with this game today. It'll be different tomorrow, I'm sure, but there's so many different guns here, and that's good for the meta because you can really pick your poison and what you're the most comfortable with. But Aim Out V4, yet again, 50-round drum, even in semi-auto, because the fire rate here, you can spam it a little bit faster. You know, if you have like digital tap triggers or you're playing on keyboard and mouse or you have a really good trigger finger, 50 rounds just means you don't have to worry about reloading ever in a precarious position. Ripper Underbarrel is going to be the go-to for using this in semi-auto mode. That stabilization for that recenter is going to be huge, of course. I go for the Sack and Shred 40 because when I do spam this, it does bounce a decent amount, even in semi-auto. So that's going to be pretty clutch for that. That said, if you were just a beast with this gun, you could definitely throw on a suppressor instead, get that added velocity and whatnot, but I think most players are probably going to want a compensator there. And then the Boremaster Barrel, better velocity, better range, better control, better pizza for one last time today. That 3-in-1 combo just really increasing the efficiency and the lethality in the mid to long range. That said, you really can't go wrong with any of these weapons here today. All 10 of these are so good. You could pair them with one another and just create some wildly dominant loadouts. That's the overall top 10 best weapons in Warzone right now ranked. If you enjoyed the video, if you found it helpful at all, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that sub button, turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.